Chris Burns is a seasoned consultant, speaker, author, and podcaster with over 20 years of experience in the marketing industry. In this episode, he dives deep into the essence of loving what you do, focusing on growth, and redefining the hustle. Chris shares his journey of simplifying marketing strategies to make them more accessible for clients, advocating for concise, emotionally driven messaging. He emphasizes the power of social media in building relationships and community engagement rather than just direct selling. As the author of Marketing So Easy It's Fun Again and the mind behind Hustle Leaders, a leadership and sales development program, Chris offers invaluable insights for entrepreneurs seeking fulfillment and success. Join us as we explore his philosophy on hustle, the influence of his podcast, Hustle Nation, and his strategic shift from LinkedIn to Alignable for more effective networking. Chris also discusses his plans to grow his business, publish a new book, and achieve his goals in 2024. Tune in for a conversation filled with wisdom, practical advice, and inspiration to elevate your marketing game and business mindset. As always, if you find value from this content, please like and subscribe. And now here's my conversation with Chris Burns. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Beyond Fulfillment Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Goulas, and this week, my guest is consultant, speaker, author, and podcaster, Chris Burns. Welcome, Chris.
Dave, thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
Yeah. Thanks so much for taking the time. So I'm on your site right now, iamchrisburns.com. Can you tell us about your backstory and what you do?
Yeah, and I'll try to make it semi-brief so we can get into some fun stuff that might be more valuable for the audience. So historically, I'd been in marketing, and it really dated back to high school for me. That was really the first time where I found school fun and interesting. And I kind of knew that was probably something I wanted to do or study in college and in my career. And that happened to be true. So I worked in marketing for 20 years. And where things got really fun and interesting was working in an agency. And then after about 5.5 years there or more, I went off and kind of became my own consultant and coach. And I started working with businesses and doing a lot of speaking, corporate engagements. And, to me, really my big thing with marketing was where I became really good at it was when I made things really simple and easy. And kind of as marketing was starting to really accumulate to something meaningful for me, I had an opportunity to teach as an adjunct professor at a local university. And I turned a lot of that experience in my marketing career into a book, and I called it Marketing So Easy It's Fun Again. And I just published that on Amazon. And that's basically what I tell people. It's two things. It's 20 years worth of examples of what not to do, because I've tried everything and I can tell you exactly what doesn't work. And I can also then tell you a big part of what does work. But also as part of that, as I mentioned, it really wasn't until that I started making marketing easy that it did become more fun, but it also became more effective. And I think that's a big part of where people go wrong. And if you fast forward now, I've been working on a business in the background called Hustle Leaders. We have a podcast called Hustle Nation. And I've focused a lot of my time on this leadership and sales development program that we offer, which is all about creating a sales culture of hustle without the burnout.
Okay. Yeah, so let's get in more of that too, because hustle culture, right, has gotten attacked in recent years in terms of the name of balance and all that. So can you talk about what hustle means to you?
Yeah. So I'm going to go two ways on this one here. So it's funny you mentioned that, and I'm glad you did, because I've been reaching out proactively to be on some podcasts, and there was a female podcaster who's very successful, and I just reached out, sent her a canned message, said who I was, and I didn't talk much about the hustle stuff, but I just included it as a link and a logo, and she responds back within 5 minutes and said, sorry, that you're not going to be a good fit. And based on the criteria that she posted, I checked all the boxes, all 7 boxes. I was like, that's kind of interesting. I said, hey, if you don't mind, I'd just like to ask why. And obviously, from my perspective, I just want to make sure that what I'm saying to people, I'm properly indicating what it is I do and who I am. And she just said, we're not a fan of hustle. And that's where I said, like, hold up. That's not exactly what it means. Don't judge a book by its cover. And now I'm going to pivot. I'll tell you what it means to me, and I'll come back to that because I think that's important. Is my co-founder and I have a depth of experience in coaching, specifically youth sports and young adults. And we're also athletes, come from being athletes. I will say, though, we're not top-notch athletes by any stretch of the imagination, but we love sports. And so if you can remember back to when you were playing, or maybe back to when your kids were playing, you'll oftentimes be sitting in the stands and saying to them, as I say to my 9-year-old daughters, hustle, hustle. And they'll look at you and say, Dad, Mom, I thought I was. But they don't really understand what the definition of hustle is. And so as I tell my daughters very often is that, you don't have to be the most talented person on the field or on the court to score a goal or to get a basket or make a stop. You just have to work harder and you have to want it more. You have to outwork the other individuals. And I tell my daughters all the time, what does hustle mean? It's like, don't give up, work harder than the other person. And that's all I expect. I'm going to love my kids no matter how successful or unsuccessful they are. Are we working? Are we giving it our all? And when you do that as a youth sports coach, as I am, it's amazing how you start to create a culture, even amongst 9-year-olds, of kids that are going to go out there and they're going to give it their all. And I'm going to praise them and support them, even if we lose our first 12 games, as we did. And then as we started to gel and they started to learn and understand what we were starting to coach, they started to buy in and they started to say, like, oh yeah, it is fun to work hard. It is fun to grind through that game, outworking everybody, even when you are tired, and finally win a tournament. And that's the beauty of it. It's the hard work that goes into it. So to me, hustle doesn't mean you have to work 60 hours a week. Doesn't mean you have to eat like crap, not take care of yourself, don't sleep, sacrifice your relationships. A bit of what we're trying to do is almost an anti-hustle movement. And we're trying to make hustle a positive, healthy word again. And what that means to me is learning how to take your 40 hours a week. Maybe it's 25 for you, or maybe it's 50. I work a lot. I just like working. So you have this limited amount of time. How do you take that and become really efficient and successful with that time? Because that to me is hustle. And it may not be outworking some other people as it does mean in sports. It may not mean those things, and that's okay. But you have to define what it means, just like you have to define what success and failure means. And I say this very often, is that success to me in high school was, getting a C+, was passing. And I had friends that they didn't get A's. Their parents said that's a failure. So you have to define it.
Okay. And do you think part of the issue with that too is because if you look at entrepreneurs, very often they love what they do. They're all in on their business. They work a lot of hours, but it doesn't feel like work because they're truly engaged in really building something, to where so much of the anti-hustle culture, as we call it, may come from other people that are maybe in careers where they're not engaged, or they're not all in, or they almost look at work as like a negative thing. And there's there's almost like the opposite approach to work.
Yeah, I think if you don't truly love what you do, there's a bit of a problem there. And that may be a sign for you that it's time to switch gears and do either a different job, company, industry, whatever. Hustle may not appeal to you, and that's okay. Even if my version, our definition of hustle, which is an acronym for something, does not appeal to you, that's okay. But if you are truly hungry and you do truly want to be the best version of yourself, you want to grow, you want your team and your company to be successful, then you have to look at, how can I do that? And a lot of times it comes from making sacrifices, but it doesn't have to be what Gary Vaynerchuk called it, which was, eat like crap for years, don't sleep, work more, sacrifice your friendships and your relationships and your marriage. That's just not the truth. And that's not sustainable for anybody. In fact, that's typically how you get burnt out. And so that's why for us, a lot of it is smarter, not just harder, getting your priorities, but really just starting with a good foundation, which is, having a crystal clear vision of what you want, and then having a strategy, which is a blueprint or a game plan as to how you're going to get there. Most people don't have that, and that's why when they do hustle, they burn out in flames and they say, yeah, this hustle thing's not for me. And it's not because of the word hustle, it's because of them.
Okay. All right. So marketing's so easy that it's fun again. And you talked about your approach is simplifying marketing. Can you talk more about that in terms of what steps people can take to really simplify their marketing?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, start with a quick story is when I left the agency world and became a consultant and coach, I was charging a lot of money to build strategies, marketing strategies for businesses. And my strategies were up to 30, 40 pages long, depending on the business. And I was so proud of it because there was so much time and resources invested in that. And I'd follow up 6 months later only to find out they're not using it. And I'm like, why? I don't know. It's a lot of information. So I distilled it down to half, about 20 pages, only to follow up 6 months later, still pretty much the same thing, if better, not by much. And I kind of hearkened back to something, which was when I was in the agency world, I was tasked to speak at an event, and the person said to me, I want you to talk about marketing strategy, specifically social media, and you got to make this so simple and so easy because our audience is new to this and they'll be very overwhelmed. Keep in mind, this was a long time ago when Facebook didn't seem quite as complex as it is now. And I finally got it down to one page. And after that event, I had never had so many people come up to me after and say, hey, can I get a copy of that strategy that you created? Okay. So I spoke again a month later, same topic, same thing. That's when I knew I had something. And so I kind of had this epiphany. I'm like, what if I made it so easy that my clients would have no excuses? I don't want to get hired for something only to find out they're not taking advantage of all the work that I put in. I want them to be successful. I want them to use what I created for them. So I started doing that, and my clients, even $10, $20 million companies were saying, oh, it's really refreshing that you make marketing simple and easy. And that's when it really hit me. I said, yeah, I'm going to make it so simple and so easy, it's going to be fun. And then I started saying, it's going to be so fun, you'll have no excuses. And it wasn't until a couple of years later where I said, God, that's got to be a book. It's got to be a book. And it's become now over the last 6, 7 years, the framework for everything that I do. It's a big part of what we do at Hustle Leaders. And I've just found that we as entrepreneurs, I've done this. So to me, this hits home, is I've made things more complex than they need to be. More is not more, less is more. So specifically in marketing, when you're saying something on your website or in your social media, the most effective messages are the most concise messages simultaneously. The more words you put into a sentence or a paragraph or an offer, whatever it is, tagline, the less effective it becomes. And so if you want something that's very powerful, we have to make it concise. The same is true in strategy. The same is true in social media. You can't talk about 15 different subjects. You have to pick a lane. And you have to decide, what kind of content are we going to post? What are we good at? What is going to be interesting to our audience? And you have to pick a few things and say, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to be. And if you can't strategize on what those things are, you're ultimately just throwing things against the wall. And if you do that without a strategy, I would ask you this, just like in coaching, whether it be professional or youth sports, if you don't have a plan or a strategy, you show up to a couple of games, you should expect to lose, right? You shouldn't have any expectations at best. And so we need to hold ourselves to that same accountability in marketing, as we need to have a game plan, but it needs to be simple. It needs to be easy. And sometimes it's doing less, meaning quality over quantity, that's going to get us to become and look maybe, let's just say, more interesting and potentially have a more effective message that our audience will resonate with. So instead of posting 5 or 6 times a week, maybe you just post twice and really focus in, hone in on quality, because you could do that and it foreseeably spend less time on marketing and less money, and it would also be more effective, potentially.
Freight shippers, are you looking for a better experience shipping less than truckload? Are you tired of unpleasant surprises, reclass, reweighs, and the invoice always being higher than the quote? Well, experience the difference with SPI Logistics. I joined SPI as a freight agent to offer a better experience to our 3PL customers, and I'm now offering that same experience to freight shippers nationwide. You get the same personal service you've come to expect when you deal with me, and I've got a whole team of experts that help with all aspects of the transaction from start to finish. Click the link below, or you can email me directly. Thank you.
Okay. And can you give us some other highlights of some ways that people can make like marketing simpler?
Yeah, I would say this. So often when people think about social media specifically, I will say, and I do a lot of workshops, and people say, well, what do you mean social media is not for selling? I think we have to get that out of our head, that we use as businesses social media to sell our products or services to our followers and prospective followers. Social media is very much social, which is engagement and conversation and relationships and relationship building. And the media is the content, the written word, the photos, the videos, etc. And so we need to kind of marry those together and say, okay, if I can build followers, build a relationship in a community, I am then building relationships and advocates. If I have more relationships and advocates, I should naturally have more of what? Sales. And so if we try to think about that, let's unpack that for a moment. How do I do that? I share things, and these are my 3 pillars of marketing. Your content should be creative, not creative, educational, empowering, and inspiring. And the undercurrent of a lot of that is you need to try, and you can't always do this, but you need to try to evoke an emotion or a feeling. Because if I see your content and I don't feel anything, then it's just white noise, it's sterile. And so if you have content that's educating me or empowering me to do something or inspiring me to, conquer that adversity or conquer my fear, I'm likely to take an action. Therefore, I did that because I felt something. And it requires thought. It requires time and effort from you as a marketer or as a business person who's doing marketing. And so let's stop trying to sell, because no one wants to be sold to, right? I don't like ads. I don't like being pushed. I don't like 20% off, free shipping. Doesn't make a difference for me. I can get that anywhere in the world right now if I wanted, specifically from places like Walmart, Kohl's, Amazon, etc. So that's one thing. And my other rule with that so often is 90% of the time, at least, don't post something unless you feel like it adds value to your followers' newsfeed. Or in other words, don't post something if you wouldn't like it. If you're just creating content to filler content, it's not worth it. It's just a waste of 5 to 10 minutes that you use to create and post that.
Wow. Okay. So focus on educating, adding value, inspiring, and making sure, even if sometimes if that means less posting, do that as opposed to just the filler content or anything else.
And I want to touch on why that's important real quick. Is number one, organic reach. So if you're listening and you're like, what the heck is that? Well, organic reach is the amount of followers who see your content. So if you have 100 followers right now, if you do any research on algorithms and organic reach, it is likely that 5% of them will see your content. So if you've seen your reach shrink, meaning fewer people are seeing it, obviously then fewer people are engaging with it. It's not your fault. That's the platforms, and most of them, almost all of them, are becoming pay to play, meaning you have to advertise to get your content in front of even your current followers, let alone new followers and new prospective customers. So that's a big reason why I'd rather you focus on quality, because it's more shareable. More people are likely when they see it to engage with it. And if you get that, the algorithm says, this is good content. Maybe we should show it to more people. That is why you're far better off focusing on quality over quantity. Okay.
And let's talk about LinkedIn specifically for a minute. I mean, that's the platform I spend the most time on, and I'm sure you deal with this issue too. The pitch slapping. What would you say to the people that, we all get these connection requests, and as soon as you accept, boom, there's like a 3-page message about a product or an offer or some reason why they want you to buy something right away. What would you say to people that have that as their marketing strategy?
Well, I would tell them to stop because, for one, they wouldn't like it. It wouldn't be effective to them. And, or if you're the one receiving it, have fun with it. Like, for example, yesterday I got a message and I get this almost the exact same message probably once a month. It's like, hey, I'm reaching out. It looks like you've accomplished so much in your career. Just want to say tremendous job. And it feels very like fakely patronizing me. And then it's like, hey, have you ever considered being a published author? I just feel like it'd be so great for, what you do. And I'll respond back, is this an automated bot message? Because it sure feels like it. Oh, why? Well, if you looked at, I don't know, any part of my profile, it says in 4 different places, and even my featured content, you can get a link to purchase my book. I've purchased 2 books, 3 if you count my planner. You obviously didn't do any research. And I'll blatantly say it. I have no problem saying that. But here's what I would do instead is I would focus on relationships, because community and networking is what it's all about today. If you're able to create a positive first impression, I would focus on that. Just introduce yourself, tell them who you are, why you're connecting. Don't sell anything. If anything, just ask a question. Say, hey, I noticed you went to University of Illinois or University of Wisconsin. I went there too. My brother went there. How cool. What was your favorite thing about it? Whatever. That's building linkage, which is a link between you and that person. It kind of opens up the door a little bit and says, oh, this person's like me a little bit. And then I might follow up again and say, hey, thanks so much. I see you're in sales. I have a business that specializes in helping sales professionals do X, Y, and Z. Have you ever struggled with X? You're not trying to sell anything. You're just, again, advancing the conversation. But I would not invite people to meet. I would not direct people to your website or a YouTube video unless you think it's going to help them or benefit them. Because ultimately, all people think is they're trying to spam me. They're trying to sell me. They want my email address. And I just don't like it. So I do like a DM strategy. I just don't like it the way that it's being done. And here's what I've done is I will start with an introduction message and I will direct people to my Facebook group. So I've got 2 Facebook groups, one for marketing, one for leadership. And I just say, hey, your profile suggests that, you're into sales, you're into this. I've built a community, bunch of people that share value and the like I said, educational, empowering, inspiring. If you want to be a part of it, it's free. Come join this link. Love to get to know you and have you be a part of my group. No spam, no sales. And I probably get about a 15% follow-through rate on that. So that's a good way to build rapport, build relationship, bring some value to them. And then from there, when you see them engaging in the group, you can follow up with a DM and say, hey, Jim, I see you're really enjoying the group. Would you be interested in doing a one-to-one? No agenda, just want to get to know you a little bit. And if it turns out that there's opportunity, then you could say, hey, would you be open to having another call where I can tell you a little bit more about my services? I think you'd be a great fit. Worst they could do is say no. And if they say yes, then they're actually pretty interested. So I think we have to really disrupt this space of DMs, because that's a big reason why I don't spend as much time on LinkedIn. I mean, I've loved it. It's been my favorite, but over the last 16 months, my heart has moved to Alignable.
Okay. So you spend a majority of your time on Alignable these days?
Yes. I actually just had the CEO of Alignable on my podcast yesterday, and he calls it not a social media platform. Even though I've been calling it that forever, he calls it a network and community building platform. So it's really designed to connect people for networking, getting to know them, and then ultimately building a community. It feels a lot like a little bit of Facebook meets LinkedIn, but it's been a phenomenal tool. And I'll tell you right now, there's been no other platform that's even come close. It's probably a 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 ratio of lead generation on Alignable versus LinkedIn. And Alignable only has 9 million people. It's a fraction of what LinkedIn has.
Interesting. Okay. So you mentioned the podcast there. What made you decide to start that?
Yeah, so about 3 years ago, my co-founder had shared something on Facebook about this hustle leadership thing that he created. And there was some opportunity to potentially work for him in the year past. And so I said, hey, it's really cool. I'd love to learn more. I have some ideas for you. We got together and I said, hey, you should really start a podcast and do this, this, and this. And he's like, well, why don't you just start a podcast for me? And I was like, well, secretly, I'm actually trying to start a podcast right now, but it's about marketing. He's like, well, why don't you just do that? We could do it together. You can run it since you've done this before. And I was like, okay, so what's that look like? He's like, oh, well, just make you a business partner or whatever. And next thing you know, we're 75 episodes in, and today we just interviewed someone who was had worked with Kobe Bryant and Kevin Durant, was a basketball mindset trainer. And I, never in my wildest dreams would I thought that, we're talking to, former NFL players and coaches that have worked with legends, and it's just been a lot of fun. That's been the catalyst that's helped grow and helped us build a funnel and an ecosystem for our leadership and sales training business.
Yeah, and I was going to ask too, how big of an impact has the podcast had on your business?
Well, I will say this. In the beginning, it had very minimal impact. But a couple things that I think happen is, number one, when you get to the point of getting to 50 episodes, it's almost as if more downloads happen. I don't know if it's something in the algorithm or not. And then you get to the point of 75 episodes and you start to look back and you say, wow, we've improved it a lot. And then you start to get some feedback from people, more people listening who are starting to listen more frequently. So as your show improves and the downloads start to increase, people take notice. And I think it's a bit similar to writing a book where it comes with some enhanced credibility, and certainly gets your name out there. It's very shareable content. We don't do any selling, no sponsorships, no advertisements. It's really just selfishly as much for us as it is for the audience, and to learn, be entertained and inspired and whatnot. And so I think it's only really been in the last 3 or 4 months where we've seen kind of that support in the business where people say, hey, I want to learn more about this, or, how do I get on the podcast? And hey, I learned about your podcast, and then, now I want to know about your products and services. The problem for most people is they're not patient enough to kind of sit through a 1.5 to 2 years worth of recordings and all that hard work to see it finally pay off. And that's probably true in anything, but it's still starting to show in different ways how it's benefited our business. And the big question I have for my co-host is, you get this far and you start to have some big level CEOs on. How do I take those relationships and what do I do with them? I still don't know. How do I cultivate all those great relationships? Because some of these people are now referring other amazing guests, and it's just incredible how we continue to climb with our success there. It's still have a long way to go.
Yeah. Listen, I agree. I'm relatively new in my podcast journey too, but it's same thing. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. And you really, the farther you go, you really start to see the benefits pile up. And probably the biggest benefit is just the networking and the relationships that you create with all the guests and whatnot, what that can turn into.
You never know what'll happen from a new relationship with someone, like-minded, who's also very successful, and just the learning has been incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So 2024, we're about halfway through. What's next for you within your business journey?
Yeah. So if you asked me this question 2 or 3 years ago, I probably would have given you a much different answer, because at that time, I thought maybe it'd be cool to have a portfolio of 5 or 6 small businesses or micro businesses. And over the last couple of years, I've divested, sold, closed a couple businesses, and it was all for the purpose that, moving into 2024 would be a year of laser focus. And 2024 was going to be the year I published a book, which I did. And now I'm really focused on one of a couple things, which is growth within the leadership and sales business, Hustle Leaders. It is growth within Hustle Nation podcast, which is supporting, it's adjacent, not a business, but an adjacent project, and just getting crystal clear on how to achieve the big goals that I want. And that's probably what I would encourage for a lot of people too, is if you have something out there that you really, really want to achieve, whether it be greatness, sales, relationships, whatever you want, To me, the biggest thing that I've taken from my recent success is that, to scale that, I need to be focused on one thing. I'm only one person and I can't do it alone, which is why I have a business partner. And it's also about building the team around you so that you can continue to work on the business and not in the business. And that's probably what's next for me is getting me out of some of the minutia on the day to day to work on scaling the business, because I have some really big personal goals, both for business and personally, and I really dedicated to getting those not only this quarter but this year and beyond. And a big part of that's just being laser focused on one thing.
All right. So if people want to get in touch and learn more about your coaching or the podcast or anything else that you're doing, what's the best way they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, if you're interested on the marketing side of things, whether it be the coaching, consulting, speaking, you can visit my personal website at iamchrisburns.com. If you're interested in the sales and leadership stuff, you can find us at hustleleaders.com, or the podcast, and it's pretty much everywhere you can find a podcast. YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and that is Hustle Nation Podcast or hustlenationpodcast.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Alignable, Chris Burns. You just type it in, you'll find me.
Okay. All right. We'll link all that in the show notes for everyone. All right. Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. We really appreciate it. And that's all the time we have for now. We will see you next time.